Rob. Welcome to Testimonies of Triumph. And you and I don't know one another. I would love to hear a little bit about kind of who you are, kind of, what was life like before, kind of what's life like now, and where do we go from here?
All right. Well, good to be here with you, Bradley. Thank you much for having me on here. Always enjoy sharing my testimony because the Lord has done such great work in my life. And, the only way others, kind of follow along or might want to take a shot on the Lord that aren't believers are to see folks like you and I who maybe have been down and out a little bit and
Yep.
have been on a pretty good rebound.
Yeah.
So I grew up in New England,
Okay.
in Rhode Island, in a small little town, and one of the crazy things was as I got involved with I went to an Episcopal church when I was growing up, and at about 10 years old, I was an acolyte at that church, and big part of my story is that one day when I was bringing the collection plate back to the sacristy after it went around the church, Rob decided that he wanted to borrow a couple of dollars to go to the. I think I bought baseball cards or something was a big thing at the time or whatever. So as I went back there, I looked out the door. I looked back over my shoulder at the church. I saw the pastor up there still preaching away. Nobody was looking at me. And I literally borrowed $2 really fast up and under my robe down into my pocket. And I share that because for the next 23 years, I did a pretty good job of learning how to drink and snort cocaine and become homeless and all of that wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
And fast forward after all of this wreaking of havoc and moving down to Fort Lauderdale, where I was literally went to jump off a bridge one day. I was going to get crushed by one of the cruise ships down there and just end my life. It was just, party was
Wow.
over. And it was like that movie, It's a Wonderful Life, where George goes to the bridge and
Yeah.
Clarence the angel shows up.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't see an angel, Bradley, but what I heard was, why don't you go out to Hollywood and try to make something out of your life? I had worked
Wow.
in radio and TV a bit in New England before that time. And so that ended up happening. I didn't clearly, I'm here talking to you now, so I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
jump. But what happened was I finally got sober on November 28th, 1992.
Okay.
And 28 days later, I had a friend of mine. I was staying in a one friend basement in Rhode Island. I got back up there from Florida, and he was having a Christmas Eve party. And a gentleman comes over that was a friend of mine who was a party friend, and he's trying the heck out of getting me to stay and party. He's got supplies and all this
Sure.
stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I said, you know what, dude? I'm 28 days sober. I took $2 from Jesus several years ago. I'm still homeless, but I got $5 in my pocket,
Yeah.
and I'm borrowing my other friend's truck, who I'm staying with, and I'm going up to midnight mass to repay Jesus. And that guy tried to get me to stay so bad. And you know what? I got up to that church and I sat there, brother. This is the craziest thing. It's in my book, one of my Cruising Toward Heaven books. And it is, I was sat there, full house, 300 people, midnight mass, beautiful candles, and, all everybody singing away and having a glorious time. Nobody sat in the pew I was in.
Hmm.
I was only 5 rows back from the front.
Yeah.
Wasn't like I was in the back.
Yeah.
And it was the weirdest thing. It was like the Lord said, was reminding me of what I had done. He just wanted me to remember it. He didn't want to punish me. That was, he'd already forgiven me years ago, right? I
For
was the
sure.
only one still punishing myself.
Yeah.
But he wanted me to remember what I did. And then he wanted me to remember, this is my belief from my experience,
Sure.
is that he wanted to remind me how far he had taken me, even to get to 28 days sober from not jumping off that bridge.
Yeah.
And I sat there, Bradley, with my $5 bill, and I kept feeling my pocket, and I'd pull it out and I'd look at it, and I'm like, come on, get this collection plate, And finally, they passed this thing around, and I pull it out of my pocket and I slam it in there. And all I can tell you is I haven't had a drink or a line of cocaine since, and
Wow. That's
it's
amazing.
over close to 32 years right now.
That is amazing.
That's Jesus, right?
Yeah, and let me ask you. I've never had a drug addiction. However, I know people who have, and by simply making the statement, haven't had any. Have there been lots of temptation in the process, or was it just simply that's it, we're done, no more temptation, we're good to go?
Yeah, the funny thing is that my ex-girlfriend was nice enough to come stop me, to come and get me out of the police station at 4:30 in the morning. That was a blessing in itself that she answered the phone at four
Yeah,
in the morning, especially after we had had an argument and stuff that night. And I blew out and I went drinking and got stopped by the cops. And she should have just left me there. But she came walking into the police station in Warwick, Rhode Island at about 4:30 in the morning. She was about 20 feet from me when she walked in. I was sitting out front. They released me after I failed the DUI test, and they kept me for a few hours. And anyway, she comes to pick me up, and I just looked at her and I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And she looked at me and said, I can smell you from here.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And that was it. That was the and
Wow.
one of the greatest things. Let me see if I grab this off the shelf right here behind me here without knocking everything down. This is the book that people have been using. It's on Amazon,
Yeah,
Cruising Toward Heaven, Navigating. And you can see right here, it won the 2024 International Impact Book Award for Addiction and Recovery.
that's
So this
amazing.
is
It's
this is
awesome.
my life testimony. And so my ex-girlfriend Sherry came to pick me up. But one of the greatest things that happened was a couple of years ago, my dad had passed in New England. I went back up to for the the cemetery to for a 1 year celebration, and I got this thought. Most people want to tell you how bad all the police officers are and law enforcement and stuff. And I got to tell you, I am so blessed. I was driving like the worst human being on planet Earth that night. I was really, really bad.
Yeah,
And I am so blessed that that officer stopped me and locked me up and took me off so that I didn't harm any other human being
yeah.
or myself, right? And one of the coolest things, Bradley, that has happened because of that, I got the thought I should try to find this guy and thank him for saving my life.
Yeah.
And I called the police station the next day, and they're like, it's 30 years later, sir. And so this was 2 years
Besides, you
ago. And
kind of sound like you might be a nut. I'm not sure if I want to give you anybody's
right.
address.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so we're really cool. I said, listen, I just want to shake his hand and thank him for saving my life that
Yeah,
night. And they're like, well, he probably retired, 10 years ago. They usually do 20
sure.
and out. Anyways, they called me not very long after and said, we got his name. We can't tell you where he is. We don't know,
Yeah.
but we believe he's on Facebook. You can look him up.
Yeah.
I look up this guy. His name is Bud Latham. And he ends up, I call him and I tell him what I wanted to do, and he invites me over to his house.
Wow. That's amazing.
And I get to go over to this guy's house, and here you go. Here, that is
How,
Bud,
how cool.
and he is like the size of any starting tackle for any pro football team. He's
Yep.
just a huge guy, and I'm a little 5'9" guy here,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I got to go there and shake his hand and thank him. And I said, Officer Bud, thank you for doing your job that night, for serving and protecting the community from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, I deserved to be taken off the streets that night.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I said, um, do you realize that by you doing your job, that I have been able to help hundreds upon hundreds of people in recovery over the last 30 years. And in turn, they have been able to help hundreds upon hundreds of people.
Yeah.
I said, so just you doing your job that night,
Yeah.
you have no idea the amount of positive impact and the lives that you may have helped save because you did your job that night. So I just share that because so many people want to just, talk about how bad things are.
Yeah.
And one of the weird things, Bradley, is that I speak at a lot of recovery meetings. And I say, I know you guys are all, and if that cop hadn't arrested me, and I tell that story, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden they come up to me and they're like, you know what, dude, I've been looking at this thing wrong the whole time. I
Yeah.
think I got to find the guy that stopped me and thank him as well.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the blessings so that gives you a quick thing where I was and some of the things that happened in between. But Jesus was my first He was my first amends. If you're going to make a first amend, that's a pretty good way to start.
Yeah, what an amazing feeling to have $5 in your hand and be dealing with some of the other temptation and still stick to your guns and go and do, and what a relief that must have been when the plate came by.
Well, here's the thing. That guy that was my friend that was trying to get me to party, three
Yeah.
weeks later, he got busted and spent the next 10 years in the Rhode Island State Prison.
Wow, you dodged a bullet.
So, as I share every day when I do a 12-step meeting, I tell people we have choices to make
Yeah,
every single day. And whether
yeah,
we're in recovery or not, in life, we have a choice to be
yeah.
Christ-like. We have a choice to not be Christ-like.
Yep.
We,
Yeah.
we can choose on any given day and
Yeah.
any given moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and knowing a little bit about kind of the information that you sent to me, like we're just not talking about recovery stuff, right? God has asked you to
Okay.
do other things. What are
Whew.
what are the other things that I'm interested in kind of what that looks like, right? Just because those of us who have had a chance to sort of get a call, it's hard to explain sometimes. But then when people tell a story, we're just all in amazement. Like, what happened? How did you hear directly from someone? What did you hear? And how is it that all of a sudden it made sense? And what are you doing now versus what you were doing before?
Well, fortunately for the audience, it's only a 1 hour show because I could go on for 6 days straight
Yeah.
with
Oh, that's great.
all the glorious stuff honoring him.
Yeah.
What I believe, what I found out, Bradley, and you as a podcast host may have found out as well, is that there are certain people who are willing to share about the goodness of the Lord.
Yep.
And for those of us that are, because the goodness happens to all of us,
Right.
right? He doesn't. He tells us, Bradley, Robert, Melissa, Louise, whoever, we're all created equal.
Yep.
He loves us all equally as much.
For
But
sure.
some of us choose to say, hey, this really cool thing happened, and it has to be the Lord,
Right.
right? And what I found out in AA meetings, especially, is that a lot of people don't like to talk about God,
Hmm.
but I always do. They
Yeah.
always kind of hem and haw and tell you why they don't, And I share with them all the time. They laugh every time my hand goes up. They know Rob is going to be talking about God in
Yeah.
his share.
Yep.
And what I say is, guys, you notice I never tell the same story twice.
Yeah.
I said, because God loves me sharing about his goodness, that he doesn't want me to bore you to death. He wants you to get as excited as I am
Right.
about him.
Yeah.
So he keeps giving me new stories to tell you.
Yep.
So
Yep.
hopefully it'll catch on. So
Yep.
with me, I go out to Hollywood with 11 months sober. My dad gave me a car to use that, man, I just complained about. It was an old car. I just complained about. There's a wonderful story in this book about that, about the appreciation that we
Sure.
need to have for certain things, right? So I got out there, and the reality is, Bradley, is that I started going to a church, and I got invited to a church by a Christian gal that I was looking for an apartment from. And she's like, you can't stay with me because I'm a Christian. Anyways, all of that, whatever,
Yeah.
however, everybody believes that stuff. But anyways, I went to the church on a singles night. I ended up going to church. And then one Sunday, I am sitting, it's held like 2,500 people in the main auditorium. And then there was like 200 in the overflow. Well, I got there a little late. I'm in the overflow. And this story is in my book as well, because I got scared away from the church for 9 years. The pastor, who was kind of a worldwide known guy, came walking off the stage and in the back room, and his eyes caught my eyes. Like, I can't even explain. It was so scary. The scariest thing I ever saw with my eyes. And all it was, we caught eyes.
Yeah.
And I instantly said, oh my God, I am looking at the devil. I said,
Interesting.
I know he's a pastor, but I'm looking at the devil.
Yeah.
And he looked at me
Yeah.
like, oh my God, this guy knows.
Yeah. I just died myself out by looking at this guy.
Right. And I grabbed my members only jacket that I had at the time. It was December.
Yeah.
And I started flying out the church. He immediately, instead of coming to talk to others in the congregation, he immediately bolted left. And I ran away from the church for 9 years. And God, I didn't give up my sobriety, obviously, but I ran away from the church, and then I met my ex-wife when I was 10 years sober, and her amazing grandmother Marie used to live in Tucson,
Mhm.
and she loved Robert Schuller, the
Yep.
Crystal Cathedral Hour of Power.
Yep.
And so she moved as she got older. She moved in with her son, so my ex-wife's father and mother. And one day she's like, I would really like to physically go to the church that I've been sending money to for. So I brought her down there and I got involved with the homeless ministry,
Oh,
and that got me back into the church.
interesting.
And I started running the homeless ministry there, and we were able to build it up from about 20 to 50 people a week that they had to. I started going on the Hour of Power and getting donations and
Yeah.
stuff, and we really just set it up like a really wonderful event every Monday. And within 2 months, we were doing between 250 and 300 meals.
Wow, what a
Um,
blessing. That's
it was,
incredible.
well, here's the thing. What I said to them, I said, you know why you're getting 20 people? I asked them, I said, how are you working this thing? And they said, well, what we do is we have a meal every Monday and about 20 to 50 people will show up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, 20 to 50? I said, you have a worldwide church.
Yeah, yeah,
Like the
yeah.
whole world, the people come just to see the church,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you have a coach bus sitting in your parking lot where you could go around town picking people up.
Yeah.
Like, how can you only? And they're like, well, if you can do a better job. I said, well, I'd like to at least give it a shot,
Sure.
you know? And what happened was, just to make a long story short, is that one day my ex-wife comes home, who was my wife at the time, and she came home and she said, honey, and I was the head volunteer, and there was a guy above me who was the pastor, and she said that guy says that you must really stink when you come home on Monday nights, and she said I asked him why, and he said he hugs those people.
Oh, and those
And
people,
and
those
that's
people.
what and that's what happened. One day they were like, Rob, one of your people is out front drunk on the front lawn, and Pastor Schuler's not going to be very happy with that. And I'm like, well, first of all, there may be a drunk person on the front lawn, but I don't have people.
That's,
I said, Jesus has people, but I'm
that's
happy to go talk to one of
yeah, sure.
my Christian brothers here, right?
Yeah.
And it was funny. It was like we built that up on the premise that everybody was equally as special. And Bradley, they were not coming there to eat the meal. There's plenty of free meals all over this place for homeless people,
Sure.
right? Plenty of churches, charities. Every day they can go somewhere. And a lot of times now they can get showers as well.
Yeah.
But I wanted it to be their day of relief,
Ah, okay.
where they got there early. We set up round banquet tables. We had flowers on the table. There were
Yeah.
plastic flowers, but still, and tablecloths. And I had a lady that ran a beauty school, a teacher, and she brought several of her students. So every week they could get a
Yep.
haircut.
Yep. Yep.
We had people. I got on the Hour of Power, and I got people to donate clothes. Well, at first week, all these people were bringing clothes, and they were just bringing these, hefty garbage bags of clothes and dumping them.
Yeah.
And I'd go through them, and I go, "What the heck? These are all dirty clothes and stuff."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And one lady, I looked at her. I said, "What am I going to do with this?" She goes, "Well, you could wash them and give it to them." I'm not spending my time. Well, I gotta take care of these people. I
Yeah.
can't be washing clothes.
Yeah.
I said, I said, these are not second-class citizens here.
Sure.
They are somebody's brother or daughter or son or mother or father going through a challenging time in life,
Yeah.
and we need to love them.
Yeah.
And I told the lady, so I'm just going to throw these in the garbage. You might as well take them home. And
Yeah.
she gave me this dirty look. And you know something? Next week, she came back with every one of those clothes from the dry cleaner in bags from the dry cleaner.
Nice.
And you have to teach people. It's like Jesus. He teaches us how to be good people. And then we choose whether or not we want to pay attention to what he's showing us.
Yeah.
Right? To
For
have the
sure.
best life possible.
Yeah.
And so we built that thing up. I had people doing. I had one lady there doing job interviews.
Yeah.
And I would let them use my cell phone. She would type all their resumes for them. We get them jobs like at Disneyland and different places around town.
Sure.
I had a lawyer firm come once a month to give them legal advice. I had a mobile medical unit that was coming once a month
Wow.
to do blood tests and things. I had prayer counselors there every week. And I also did a 20 minutes between my recovery and Bible scripture on Mondays. Oh, and we did that. And then we also had all the musicians that were like walking around town with their guitars and
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Uh-huh.
I got them to come up on stage and play
Cool.
while we were at. Now, I got to tell you, the point, they weren't the greatest musicians, but that wasn't the point, right? The
Yeah.
point was I'm building self-esteem and giving them self-worth, and they were certainly good enough.
Yeah.
They could play,
Yeah.
but it wasn't the greatest music, but it was good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And one day, this goes to show you how some people, you can't, just because somebody says I'm a Christian, or I'm a volunteer at church. A lot of people used to volunteer at that particular church because it was a world famous church,
Yeah.
and they could walk around town and somebody could go, "Hey, I saw you. You're the guy at the,"
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And that was their fame in their mind.
Yeah.
So one day after we build this thing up to like 300 people every Monday, one of the gals that I'm working with, one of the cooks, comes up and says, "Hey, you see that couple over there? They've been volunteering here for 20 years, and they're pouring the lemonade and the iced tea, and they said they're leaving right now if you don't get those guys off the stage that are playing music." She said she said they told me they suck and they are not going to listen to them anymore, and if you don't get them off the stage right now, they're quitting. And I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Clearly they're not here to serve the Lord. Clearly they're not here to love thy neighbor as thyself." I said this to me, right? I didn't say this to the gal.
Yeah, this is all internal dialogue.
Right? So we're in a big arboretum. So there's, if I don't know, at least 100 feet long, anyways, inside, at least, if not more. And so I walked over to them and I said, "Hey, I hear you've got something going on that you need some help with." They're like, "Yes. You're the one in charge. You need to get those people off the stage now. We've been volunteering here for 20 years, and we're not going to put up with this nonsense. Those guys are horrible, and we're not going to listen to them anymore."
Wow.
And I looked at them. You're gonna shocked on this one there, Bradley. I looked at them and I said, "This is the greatest day that you could possibly tell me this." And they said, "Really?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Look over there. There's a door there, a door there, a door there, a door there, and a door there. You got 5 doors to walk out, and there's only 2 of you. How cool is that?" And they looked at me like I was definitely from a third world country or something, and they didn't know what to do. And I said, "Have a blessed day."
Yep.
They couldn't believe that I was. No, this wasn't about them.
Right.
This was about loving our brothers and sisters like myself,
Yeah.
and me giving back. And at the time, my ex-wife was wonderfully involved in the 2 children that she had brought into the marriage were also loved being there and helping out. And it was about loving these people.
Yeah.
We go through these challenges. What does Jesus tell us? So whoever takes care of the least of these, I will reward you.
Yeah.
Right? We don't look down upon them.
No.
Now, mind you, in today's day and age, we do have to be careful because things have changed over the last several years, and people have gotten a little more desperate and stuff. And God also gave us wisdom, right?
For sure. Yep.
As our greatest gift. So it's like, I didn't tell you to save the world, Rob, or, whoever. What I want you to do is use wisdom.
Yeah.
And I'm watching over those folks as well, but they've got to also step up to the plate. I had to step up to the plate to do the work to get sober.
Yeah. For sure.
Right. So that was, and so if you look on iHeart and Apple Podcasts and stuff, you'll see 269. So I left there because what happened was, after I built it up to 300, I had several churches around Orange County and the city of Orange that wanted me to help them build a big facility because they have 10,000, at least at the time, they had 10,000 homeless in Orange County. Well, Orange County is kind of a ritzy type area. So they didn't want the world knowing that they had, all these homeless people running around. So let's push it under the table rather than help these people. Whatever. But they had asked me to do all this stuff. I had other churches, and I was going to do all this work. And then the pastor that had told me that I must stink on the way home, he said, "Rob, we're going to change things up now." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Those people are not really listening to you when you're doing your talk. Some of them are playing on their phone, some are reading a book, some are taking a nap at the table. I said, that's fantastic. He goes, no, they need to hear the word of Jesus. And either they're going to hear the word of Jesus. I said, you don't get it. I said, Jesus said, follow me.
Yeah.
Jesus, I don't know. I'm not a Bible expert, a theologian, but I don't ever remember reading in the Bible. Well, Jesus said, follow me. And then Jesus took 25 steps and Jesus turned to look behind him to see who was following him. And then he walked a half a mile and then he turned to see who was following. He just kept walking.
Yep.
You want to follow me? Great. You don't want to. So
Yep.
I said to this guy, I said, I don't care if they don't listen to me.
Yeah.
I said, it gives them a break for
Yep.
3 hours every Monday.
Sure.
They can sleep on the table and they don't have to worry about somebody mugging them and whatever and stuff. And,
Yeah.
and we also used to give them 2 items of clothes each week. They each got, and I went to the 99-cent store and bought a whole bunch of shaving stuff and female products and stuff. And they would come to me and they go, hey, Pastor, I know you don't give it till after we eat, but could I have the shaving cream? Because look, I got a great haircut and I want to look really good for lunch. And, you know, it was so exciting to see the joy. Anyways, they're like, these people are going to go across the hall and we're going to speak the word of the Lord and they're going to listen. And the ones that don't want to come in can stand outside and they're last to eat.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, what? I said, Chris,
come on, church.
I said, this is why your church is failing.
Yeah.
You're not you're not treating people like Jesus would. So anyways, I said, you know what? You guys do as you wish. I think God's calling me to my next assignment.
Yep.
So I left, and a lot of them had my phone numbers, and I still have people that call me that from there, that are friends. And anyways, within 2 weeks, half of the people stopped going there, and within a month, they were back down to 20 people again.
Man.
Because people weren't there for the meal.
Yeah, right.
They were there for the love and the respect and the fact that people appreciated them as human beings right where they were in their life at that moment.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's why that's why we have so many issues today, I believe, is that people have not been appreciated. So people that aren't appreciated, they don't go out and try to do, use their talents that God gave them.
Yep.
So then they're down and out and their finances aren't great or whatever it is. And so now they start making other crazy choices.
Right.
And they forget that the Lord loves them as much as anyone else and that he's just waiting to give them stuff, but they've got to help earn it as well.
Yeah. 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 It's, the epistles are full of phrases of one another, right? The community is important, and as soon as we start to say we're better than someone else, and we start to ostracize other folks, that's so against what Christ wanted us to do, right? He wanted if. This notion it drives me crazy because I think that oftentimes. It turns not only is it bad for the current program, but it turns people off of church because they see this as a very hypocritical exercise, and they see individuals who go to an organization to be seen on a Sunday, but not implement what they're hearing in their own lives, and they can't figure out how to get out of their own way, and just love on one another, and it's just destroying from within. I mean, it's just creating a place where people are just not attracted to it. And it's frustrating because those of us who understand the salvation that we've been given, even though we are going to make mistakes over and over and over and over and over again.
Yes.
We understand the value of these kinds of things. And those that just sort of, I don't know, pay it lip service or just want to be in a place, to be seen by someone else or put it on their resume, it drives me crazy.
Yes. You are 100% correct. So with that said, I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I'll try to answer your question the best I can of where I was and where I'm getting, because you're right. God has put a lot or in my way for me to do. And when I say in my way, not roadblocks, but different assignments, right? So first he had me write my first book, which is called God Bless America Before It's Too Late. And it was about challenging each of us to step up to the plate and be our best, right? And it was more of an overview of what I saw of society, of how so many of us are just so selfish and self-centered,
Yeah.
and we don't realize the choices we make. Like one really quick one was, I was on a plane in Florida, down in Tampa, and I'm going back to Los Angeles, where I was living at the time. And my wife at the time had a beautiful 4-year-old daughter, and which I raised for about 10 years. And so she hadn't seen Daddy in a week. So she's like, Daddy, when you guys? I said, I'll be home at 2 o'clock, babe. Uncle Johnny's
Yeah.
picking me up at the airport, and we'll be home at 2 o'clock. Well, while I'm getting on the plane in Tampa, on the going down the runway, there's two ladies in front of me. One's a mother, one's a daughter. One was like 70, one was like 50. So they weren't, kids.
Yeah.
And the 50-year-old is like, man, I'm not feeling good. I feel like I'm going to throw up. And the mother says, why don't you go and let's just take the next plane? Let's go relax, get your stomach. No, Mom, we're good. We're good. And the mother asked her like 4 or 5 times. And the girl's like, no. I'm just getting on the plane. Well, wouldn't you know it? We get on the plane. We weren't there 2 minutes, and the girl throws up all over the place. So now they can't leave the plane until we can't fly out until they clean
Sure.
up this mess. Well, now because of that, we were like a half an hour behind. We got behind all these other planes, and we couldn't take off on time. We land in Houston, and now because we were late, now all of a sudden it starts thundering and lightning, and they won't take off during lightning.
Yep.
So then we had to wait another hour on the tarmac. Right. Then I get back and I'm already 2 hours late, and Sadie's calling me. It's like, well, Daddy, where are you, Daddy? Where? And I'm like, I'm coming, baby girl. I'm coming, John. And then we got stuck in the 5 o'clock traffic, basically, from LAX.
Sure.
So the point is that one lady's choice, and mind you, there was another family that had 3 kids, and now they had to wait 5 hours for a layover to go to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Because they missed their flight because of that lady. So the point was, she affected 100 and some odd other people because of her choice to say, no, I'm going to do it my way.
Sure.
Yeah. Right. And so that's what kind of that book was about. So then God asked me to do a podcast, which we named it In Your Face, because it was more of me challenging myself. I'm always included. And the theme of that was to inspire, motivate, and challenge each of us to become the best we could be for ourselves, our country, and most importantly, God. And I had everybody on the show, from former, hookers, devil worshippers, all these people that had changed their lives and sharing their incredible testimonies, right?
Yeah.
And that went on for 3.5 years. And then my ex-wife decided to go in a different direction in her life. So I left that situation as God moved me on. And then he sent me up to Alaska.
Oh.
And so I was going back and forth between LA and Alaska, and hence the name of my books are called Cruising Toward Heaven. Okay. I have a series. 2 of them are out now. 2 more are coming. And I ended up in the tour business up there.
Interesting.
And with all of that, I kept the diary and stuff. And through that, I ended up doing this whole thing with cruising. So cruising, I ended up so here's the funny thing. I was going to end my life years ago jumping in front of a cruise ship.
Yeah.
I now, at 20 years of sobriety, my ex-wife goes in a total different direction. I go through a year of depression.
Sure.
My best buddy lets me stay with him. There's an ad in LA, one of the Hollywood websites, looking for a jewelry salesman to work in Juneau, Alaska for the summer. It comes with a round trip air ticket, a place to live for free, a car to use for free, salary and commission. And I had sold jewelry on the TV shopping networks after I had gotten out to Hollywood for 15 years.
Okay.
So my mother's like, why wouldn't you take that job?
Yeah.
I got up there. It wasn't what it was all supposed to be. I got into the tour business. And because of that, a couple of years later, I'm working, Bradley, on a 32-passenger cruise ship.
Oh, it drips with irony.
And through that, I end up honoring and glorifying the Lord with my award-winning book series. And we've got movie scripts that we're looking to produce as well, faith-based scripts from here. So God took me from I went from stealing from Jesus, making my amends to him. He puts a voice in my head to not jump off the cruise ship. Then he sends me to God's country in Alaska. And through that, so what happened was, to fast forward, because this is now we're getting, so I end up getting hurt on that cruise ship really bad. I was out of work for 3.5 years, 5 surgeries. It was
Wow.
just, it was not a good thing. And so, anyways, but through that, I end up meeting I got the last story of my previous book, Is It God or Coincidence? So I'm sitting in a Starbucks in Hollywood, and
Yeah.
there's a gal that's there. Never met her. She's 2 tables over from me. Her name is Kimberly. She was interviewing people to play in a play that she had written about Paul.
Really?
And I had about my friend Tony just died at 98 a couple months ago. But at 88, 10 years ago, Tony had just done a one-man hour-and-a-half play, The Road to Damascus, the transformation of Saul to
Yep.
Paul.
Yeah.
So I went over after 2 hours. She finally had a break, introduced myself. We become friends. So now there's Kimberly, right? So I finished my book, Is It God or Coincidence? I'm sitting there out of work 2 years ago, and I see on a Friday morning that there is a faith-based film being shot in Vegas the next night, and they're looking for people to be part of the gala at the producer's house. And I'm like, oh, wow, all these people in Hollywood keep telling me that one of the stories in my Is It God or Coincidence book needs to be a faith-based film.
Oh,
So
neat.
I call them and I say, hey, I'd like to come if I can. I said, I'm a Christian author. I've got a book, and the people are telling me it needs to be a film. Come on up. So I go up to Vegas. I end up meeting the lead actress, whose name is Randa, who lives in Bristol, Virginia.
Okay.
So now I've got Randa, I've got Kimberly. Well, then my attorney, who I had for this case, he was, you talk about not a very good human being, but he did send me to one doctor at USC. That one doctor says that I should get therapeutic massage therapy for my leg. It would really help the circulation and stimulation. So I didn't want to go to a corporate thing. I wanted somebody who really knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I called my best buddy who was dating a fitness trainer. I said, she must know somebody that's good. He calls me back minutes later. He says, call this girl, Monique. She prays to Jesus before she works on her clients so that his hands infiltrate hers so she can give the best healing to her clients. So I call Monique, and she is a brilliant editor as well. I didn't know this at the time, but she's the one that has edited my books. And
Cool.
it's because of her I went from having a book that was going to just share about all this negative stuff that happened on the ship
Sure.
to this beautiful award-winning Christian series,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so because of that, so now you've got Monique, and you've got Randa, and you've got Kimberly. Well, all of a sudden, Monique gets a thing from one of her friends, says, you should move to Tennessee. And
Okay.
it would be great for you to move there. And East Tennessee is also known as God's country.
Yep.
So finally, she has the opportunity. So I stroll along.
Okay.
Kimberly calls me up out of the blue.
Yeah.
Haven't talked to her in a couple of years, and said there's an NRB convention
Yep.
in Nashville in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
And I said, what's
At
NRB
the Grand
convention?
Ole Opry, yeah?
Yep.
Yep.
She says,
Been there.
she said, National Religious Broadcasters. She
Yep.
said, you should go up.
Uh-huh.
You've got your award-winning books, and you've got scripts with them. So you should go up and try to meet people.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you don't know this, but I just strolled out to Tennessee.
Oh.
So I'll just get the cheap pass and go
Yep,
up there
that's right.
and walk around the convention center. You know it. It's a beautiful place, right?
Yeah.
And so never had been there. I go up there and I meet a lady named Dorothy. Dorothy owns TV 36 or Club 36 is what she calls her show, in Augusta, Georgia.
Yep.
Dorothy invites me to come be a guest. I'm like, well, that's a long drive, but you know what? I'll do it for the Lord.
Yeah, let's
right?
get it.
Yeah, we weren't doing it Zoom. She was doing it live in studio.
Yeah.
So she tells me April 16th this past year. She's like, I can get you on April 16th. Come on down. All right. Now I get a call from a guy who runs the Christian Book Awards up in Newport News, Virginia.
Okay.
Well, he says to me, he says, "Sir, your book just won the 2024 nonfiction, nonfiction adult
Yeah.
book
Mhm.
for Christians." And I said, "Okay, so that's my other Cruising Toward Heaven book." And so that one won that award. So he said, "And we're having a red carpet event on the 27th of April."
Okay.
And he said, "You don't have to come up here if you don't want to." And I'm like, "Oh, I might come up." I said, I'm new to the area. I don't know much, what's going on. And he says, "I can just email you your stuff and your awards and stuff." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll let you know." So all of a sudden he calls me like 3 days later and he says, "Sir, we have to change the venue a week earlier. So we're going to do it on the 20th instead of the 27th.
Hmm.
So I said to my wonderful partner, I said, I think it would probably be easier for me to drive down to Georgia all the way up to near Washington, D.C., and then drive home rather than drive
Yeah, yeah,
down on
yeah.
the 16th. And so I called Dorothy and she said, I said, "Can you move me to the 19th on Friday? Because then I could leave your studio in Augusta, drive 10 hours up to Newport News, and be there for Saturday for the red carpet event to get the award for my book and two of my faith-based scripts from my books."
Yeah.
So her assistant calls me back 3 days later, "We can move you." And then I had called Randa and I said, "Randa, I said, you've only known me for a short time, but clearly you and I have connected here."
Sure.
And I said, "Why do you think God asked me to leave Los Angeles after 30 years and head to Tennessee?" And she said, "I believe that he is going to elevate you to new heights of a man that he's never taken you before."
Wow.
I said, "Okay."
Brace yourself.
Yep. Here comes the grand finale. You ready for this one here?
Yeah.
So I go down to Dorothy. Oh, so she changes my thing, right? So I go down and I call the guy and I said, "I will come up." And he said, "Well, sir, you know what? Since you're going to make it up here, we always wanted to do the book awards and we also do the film script awards. We're going to do them at the same time then. So we can honor you at the same time since you're going to
Wow.
drive all the way up here. And anybody else that comes, can be there too. But we wanted to do this.
Yeah.
So I said, "Okay, great." So I drive 8 hours on Thursday down to Augusta, Georgia. The
Yeah.
GPS took me through all the back roads and
Oh,
whatever,
yeah.
but it was good. But I found out that James Brown is from Augusta, Georgia. They got his statues all over town.
Yeah.
So I felt good when I got there. So, anyways, so I go to the studio the next day. It's a 2-hour show. It's been on for 40 years.
Mhm.
Dorothy does it every morning, and she interviewed her daughter and son-in-law for the first half hour. And then I come on, and she says to me, she said, "You see that couple over there?" And it was a wonderful black couple over in the corner. She said they were getting divorced, and I talked them into reconciling. And today is their very first day back performing together.
How cool is that?
And she said their name is New Purpose. So here I am looking for my purpose, wondering why
Yeah.
God
Yep.
brought me across country.
Yep.
And because the other guy in Newport News changed his date coincidentally
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to the 20th,
Yeah.
Dorothy was able, right? So here I am. So now I do this show, and every 15 minutes, new purpose things going into a commercial break, right? At the end of the show, Dorothy looks at me and just said, and we talked about this book and my
Yeah.
other Cruising Toward Heaven book, and so I guess the prayer lines must have been lighting up pretty good, Bradley,
Yeah.
because I was there for an hour and a half, and I didn't know that was unusual. When I got done, Dorothy says, "Hey, Rob, I just want to let you know, I've been doing this for 40 years.
Yeah.
Never once have I ever let a guest stay more than 10 or 15 minutes
Yeah.
tops.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you stayed on all 90."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay, that's good. The Holy Spirit must have been really rocking then."
Yeah.
Right?
For sure. Yeah.
So that's good. Now I drive 10 hours up to Newport News, Virginia. Never been, now, mind you, Bradley, I've never been to any of these places,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
had no idea. I'm just following GPS. I get there, and there's no hotels. I'm going to try to find this, if I can find this really quick, this picture, and see if I can show it to the audience. But nonetheless, I get up there, and normally I book a a hotel at least a day ahead of time.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I didn't book one. I didn't book one that day. And so I get up there at 11 o'clock at night. Here it is right here. Beautiful. This is going to be great. You'll love this. So I get there and all the hotels are sold out. Can't find anything. So I
Yeah.
call my wonderful partner and she says, don't worry, honey, I'll get online and get one for you. I said, you know what? While you're doing that and trying to find one, I better walk into a hotel because a lot of times if you walk in, they have stuff
They
that,
might. Yeah.
I walk in, Bradley, I walk out and the guy said, no, we're all sold out. I walk out and here's the license plate 10 feet in front of me on the truck in front of me.
That's amazing. That's
And
awesome.
Right? And
Yeah.
there is God telling me, Rob, you're my son. You're not sleeping in your car tonight. Don't worry about it, right?
Yeah.
He goes, remember, I am your father. I will take care of you. 2 minutes later, Monique calls and says, Rob, got you a hotel, go over there. And it was like 2 miles from the place. So now I'm going there on Saturday morning, and my GPS is in a half a mile, take a left.
Yeah.
And well, Rob takes a left right there.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, now I'm stuck in all this traffic. And it was a busy mall area. If you ever been to like a busy
Sure.
mall area where it's busy on all four, I mean, that's what it was like, 3 lanes. And I'm like, and I said, well, there's no need to get upset, Rob, because as we know, God allows U-turns. So you can take a U-turn.
For sure.
So I pull a UE, I get back on the same street, and now there's a car next to me and a car in front of me. And that car in front of me, Bradley, check this one out.
Nice.
Can you see what that says?
Mighty God.
Mighty God with Jesus right there.
Yeah.
And the Lord said, Rob, you're my son. I got you covered.
Yeah.
Just go to the church. I get to the church, and I know we're running out of time. I'll wrap this up quick for you. I get to the church, and the director of this festival, who I'd never met a day in my life, runs out to the parking lot in the rain.
Yeah.
And he says, sir, before you leave today, I have been given a message that I have to give you. And you cannot drive home to Knoxville until you get this message from me today. Do you understand, sir?
Wow.
Okay. So I go inside, and it was not a big crowd. I did a couple of speeches, whatever he asked me to do. We took pictures. The photographer leaves, and he goes, sir, where are you going? He goes, I told you cannot leave. I have been given you a message to give to you. Sit down here, sir, and hear the message.
Okay.
So I sit there, and he goes, sir, the message is that you are to immediately drive home to Tennessee and start the Knoxville Christian Film Festival. He said, you are now a multi-award-winning author, multi-award-winning faith-based scriptwriter. You've been in the Screen Actors Guild since 1995. You've been to premieres and festivals and all of this. You spent 15 years on TV. He goes, you are the guy I have been told that needs to do that immediately. And I'm like, okay, well, that wasn't what I was expecting here, right?
Right, for sure.
And so I leave there, and I'm driving home, and right before I got in my car, I called Randa, because she's also a graphic design artist. And I said, Randa, you'll never guess what just happened to me. And she goes, Rob, I said, would you like to design the logo? Because if I don't do this right away, I'll never do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She said, well, Rob, I know people that have tried. I said, Randa, I said, listen, I know you don't know me all that well, but you know me well enough. Yeah. You don't want to do it. We're still friends. Not a problem.
Yeah.
I said, but don't compare me to the other people who quit on the Lord.
Sure. Yeah.
I said, just pray about it. That's all. And if the answer is no, we still are friends. Not a problem.
Yeah.
I got off. I stopped at a rest area off the 81 freeway about an hour later. I look at my phone. There's a text message from Randa. She said, my husband says I don't need to pray about it. It's a no-brainer. I need to help you right away. So she designs this incredible logo. Knoxville has a sun sphere, like Seattle has the big thing for the World's Fair. And so she designed the fire of God burning from the sun sphere in downtown. And then we did that anyways. We got it going, and we started getting some submissions in and stuff from all parts of the world. It started off really cool. And so now, but all this other stuff, here's the funny thing, so now I am on July 2nd, I became the founding director of the Knoxville. And I said, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it and invite everyone.
Yeah.
So we call it the Knoxville International Christian Film Festival.
Cool.
We're doing it online. Knoxville Films, KnoxvilleChristianFilms.com has all the stuff in there, and you can submit any kind. You can submit podcasts. You can submit anything.
Sure.
Because we want as many creative Christians, and we're doing it online this year and maybe next year too. But in the last because I just started it and I'm just following the Lord's direction.
Yep.
And last week, I'm like, Lord, okay, it started off good and now it's teetering off a little bit. We got to give some awards in December. I said, I really need to build this up.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, the Lord sends me a former international marketing director at Warner Brothers.
Nice.
Meets every Sunday to discuss this and put it together. Then a guy who ran one of the biggest truck stops across America, like the Loves and one of those types of things. He was one of the big cheeses that helped build that company into a place that sold to Berkshire Hathaway.
Okay.
He ended up being in my living room the other day saying, what can I do to help? Then a faith-based talent agent in Georgia walked into my life, and she said, what can I do to help? And so all of a sudden, so we're going to do it at God's speed.
Sure.
But we're going to do it to honor and glorify him. Like some places just go running off and try to do all these things and too much. So we've got wonderful submissions. Obviously we need more. And the goal in the end is to be able to actually, with the submissions, once we build this thing up over time, is to do something that nobody else is doing, which is to help fund other Christian projects.
Amazing. That's awesome. So
we can continue to spread the word of the Lord and help others to do so.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, and one last point, and if I could make one, and what the guy said to me the other day, he said, well, so most people go to a film festival to try to sell their film to a distributor, get it made. Well, according to the executive director at SAG, Screen Actors Guild, 95% of all people never will have a chance in heck of selling their thing.
Yeah.
So I said, well, then why would I want to do this? And this other guy from the truck stop company, he said, because what we can do is you can build up a distribution route, and we can work with churches across America. It'll be tough because they all have their own little things, right? Yeah. But if we can, knowing that the only people that'll ever see their film mostly is that one-time showing at a film festival, what would happen, Rob, if you could build up a distribution route of 50 or 100 churches across America that would show the award-winning films?
Yeah.
And who knows what could happen from there?
No one knows.
So that's kind of what we're working on right now, Bradley.
You can't make this stuff up. That's the beauty of these kinds of stories. I love all of the details and the twists and turns, and I have some of my own experiences. I don't tell them quite as well as you do, and it's really fantastic to listen to the sort of abruptness that certain things are happening, yet you have enough confidence in the faith that you have to know we're not going to be run astray here. This is the direction we're headed, and we're going to be taking one step of obedience after the next. And do we know exactly what it will be? No. Has the Lord revealed it all in abundant detail? No. Are we trying to just kind of catch up to wherever He is and not hold it back? Yes. And then just blessed by all of the other resources He's providing and the other sort of bits and pieces that He's kind of crafted together through all different walks of life, through various geographic locations. You just can't make this stuff up. You couldn't have orchestrated this better if you had tried, and that's what's so fun to listen to.
Well, that is and so here's the thing. So one of the things that the marketing guy at Warner Brothers was telling me that used to work there, and he got laid off in a big giant layoff. That's why he's not there. But anyways, but he's a brilliant guy. And so he said to me, and so did the guy from the truck stop company.
Yeah.
He said to me, they both, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go back on the air, hopefully in January of 2025,
Great.
and start a podcast for just the Knoxville International Christian Film Festival.
Awesome.
That doesn't mean that we're just going to focus on the film festival. Like
Right.
Bradley, you could be asked to come on here because
That sounds like fun.
what it's going to be is it's going to be creative Christians
Yep.
trying to get the word of the Lord out.
Yeah.
And what are you doing to do that? So it'll be people that have made submissions. It'll
Yep.
be other more famous faith-based actors that I know,
Yeah.
and have their info and stuff. Producers, all kinds of stuff. Then we're gonna build up a monthly newsletter. And then we're also going to do a monthly networking. So once a month, I'm going to get somebody, my prayers are that some of the people I know, like a Kevin Sorbo, a Dean Cain, who I just did my second movie with, an Eddie McClintock, Randa, who's been the lead, different people like that will come will come and hang out with us for an hour on a Sunday night or something like that. And anybody from around the world can come and be a part of it. And we network and we all throw our thoughts together. Like you just said some things that were really interesting to me, and how you perceived how you couldn't make this stuff up, and how you could see that I don't have all the answers, and I certainly don't claim to have them all.
Yeah.
And then even the other day, just to give you one little last laugh, I had never been into this little it's a kind of a sandwich shop. And I said, and I walk in, and right behind the counter, it says, our mission to honor Jesus. And then they have a prayer, and then they have like a prayer thing set aside where it was like, if you went into a wedding guest thing, you sign, it says, fill your prayer out and we'll pray for you. And John 3:16. And it was like, and I said to the lady, I said, is this just the Tennessee thing? And she says, no, it's only a Knoxville thing. I said, even better. And she said, we have 30 franchises. And I'm like, okay, I need advertisers and sponsors. And who do you start? Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Like, all this happened last week in one short thing when the devil was telling me, oh, you know what? Maybe you should just forget about this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I appreciate the sort of just in time of all of this and coming on and doing this. The amount of animation you have is infectious, and it's fun because when you get to see the Lord be really active, and you get to see him put things in place, all it does is embolden you, and all you do is just keep on trucking. And I think that that's amazing. I will be tracking what it is you guys are doing. I would love to just learn more as you continue to do it. And if there's any way that we at the show here can help, or through the network of us sending out emails and other things to our audience, if that helps, that's amazing. And I think
emails would be amazing. Emails is what we have to do, is build up a big list. If you have a list, so just KnoxvilleChristianFilms.com is our website.
Perfect.
Or Facebook.com/Knoxville Christian Films. And both of those have, and that takes you to anybody who wants to submit. And the platform, by the way, we may have just started, but the platform that you submit on, movie producers from around the world submit on this platform from all over the world. It's been around for quite some time. So they're kind of like the PayPal thing or whatever. So you're not submitting to us. You have a wonderful, and we had to be approved for that and all of this stuff. So there you go. Anything, listen, that's why when the Lord says something, I just say yes. Right? Bradley offered me to come on the show and talk about the film festival. And then Bradley says, what can we do to help? And we can send out an email. We could put you on a thing. Every little bit, as you know.
Yeah.
And it all goes back to the Lord.
Absolutely.
And the more that Rob and Bradley can give back.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you very much, Rob, for being a guest. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your faithfulness. I appreciate your obedience to the call that's on your life. I'm excited for you, and I just hope that you and I get a chance to know each other a little bit more as life continues. So, take good care of yourself.
You as well. Thank you for the blessing. I appreciate it much.
Yeah.